Hi everybody, Rusty Blackwood here. Welcome to my loft on this April 13th, 2023. I'm just here to do a quick update for you for the Return to Autumn Part 2, as I have said that I would do to keep everybody in the loop of what's going on with the book and how it's progressing and just whatever information I can think of to give to you all. It is another beautiful, beautiful day here in Niagara. I don't know whether we're going to pay up for this later this month or whether spring has graced us fully and is here to stay. I don't know, but I'm telling you, just before Easter, I would say maybe 2 days before Easter, it became just gorgeous outside. Blue skies, the temperatures are warming up. Today it is, I believe it is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think in Celsius is 20 or there around 20. And Easter weekend was just spectacular for weather. It was just beautiful, and in every way, shape, and form. And I had a great Easter, and I hope everyone out there on the other side of this camera lens did as well. And we had all of my family, with the exception of my grandson and his son, were not here for Easter, but everybody else was. I had my Easter dinner, as I had told you in my last video, that I was planning to have it on the Saturday, which I did, and it was just fantastic. I did lemon chicken with mushroom rice, and my eldest granddaughter Carson brought a beautiful vegetable, zucchini and mushroom mix, and with just a little dash of hot sauce in it. It was just enough to give it that tang. And she brought pumpernickel bread with spinach dip, and we had my angel cake, of course, that I always make for Easter every year. And all in all, it was just wonderful. Everybody had a really lovely time. We had the great Easter egg hunt out in the backyard, and the little ones, right, like Harrison, my ginger snap, and Carter T, the youngest of the family, and even Sarah. Sarah, I can't. Poor Sarah, she come to me prior to the hunt, and she said, "Do you think I should take part?" Because she's 13 now, and in many ways very, very mature. And I said, "Well, it's up to you. If you can take part in the Easter egg hunt if you want." And even I had said I did a video while they were hunting for the eggs, and I said to Carson, I said, "There you go." I said, you want to. So get into it if you want to. And Elizabeth hid the eggs, her and her boyfriend, and they knew Sarah was going to be taking part, so they had some eggs very strategically placed in actually in high areas where, I mean, the two little ones, there was no way that they could reach them. But there was tons of them, of eggs around the ground for them to find, and Elizabeth, she kept them, so they were sort of hidden, but they were still very much in plain view for the little ones to find quite easily. And Carter T is walking now, and so for him, the typical find an egg, and he was satisfied to sit down and want to have that. And but kept telling him, "Come on, you keep going, find some more, put some more in your little basket." And he was laughing, and typical, he gets laughing and he falls down, of course, and And Harrison, he was, nobody was stopping him. He was going for it, and he did very well, and they all did very well, and they had a great time, and we had a great time watching them. And my mother started the great Easter egg hunt back when my kids and my brother's children were very small, and of course, oftentimes when Easter fell, there was still a skiff of snow on the ground, and so we rarely ever had one of the Easter egg hunts outside. But so Mom had it in the living room of the farmhouse, and of course a huge room, and so there was lots of places to hide the eggs, and kids had a great time, and so of course when they grew up and started having kids of their own, Mom carried on with that as well, and so I have done the same thing. Um, and as they say now, I have great grandchildren, three great grandsons, and so the tradition expands for them now to go on and enjoy it. And I hope that in years to come, I hope that the family, that they will carry on this tradition for their kids, because it just makes the day that much more special, um, in all ways. And so I hope everybody out there that you all did something that you always do. If you have traditions and you like to do it every year, and continue to pass your traditions on to your kids and your grandkids and so on, write down in the comments below here, if you've got any special traditions that you do, any memories that you want to share. And I mean, nobody ever comments. Rarely, once in a great while, somebody will write a comment below, but rarely. And it would be, I'd like some interaction with my audience, if you would be so kind. And it helps anybody else that's viewing the video to become maybe a little bit more involved with me and with my viewers that would write a comment and comment on the comment, that type of thing. And so I hope you all will. And I'm going to keep on asking, whether it happens or it doesn't, but I'm going to keep on asking. So, as I say, I'm here today to do an update on the progression of Return to Autumn Part 2, which I'm planning to release near the end of this month. This is now the third revision that I'm beginning, and it's just, going through. This is why you do revision, because it's just minor little details that, like a missing period, or a space between two words that isn't there, that should be there, and things like that. And so, it's time consuming. It's tedious, because you got to pay attention when you're going through it. And as I've said many times, it doesn't matter how thorough you are when you're writing your manuscript to get it ready for submission, to go into the process to be published. You can miss things, and when you've got a 300 or 400 page manuscript, that's not hard to do. And so thank heavens I've got a good editor in my program that lets me know if it doesn't let me know if, like, there's a missing period, or two words need a space between them, stuff like that. Although I do think, if I recall right, I do think that has come up, where it's underlined this, and it shows you need to pay attention to that, and whether I did, or I had gone on and didn't realize, or whatever. But as far as phrasing and proper rule of English and writing and things like this. This editor is just priceless for what it does for me as the author, and so you know, now I'm in revision and looking after getting it ready to go. And I'm sure my producer is ready to pull his hair out or pull my hair out by now, I'm sure. Because when I find discrepancies or something and I record them on the PDF and also a separate document that accompanies the PDF when I send it back to him. This was his request to have everything listed out there, the page number, the PDF page number, the chapter title, the chapter number, the paragraph the mistake is in, and what the mistake itself is. And so, and then he goes through it and corrects it. And so, but we're almost there. I think I'm well into this manuscript, and or into this PDF, and I've only found, I think it's 5 minor things, and so if it's no worse than this, it's going to be good to go, and then I can sign off on it, and it can go into its next step of being published, and because we still have the hard copy for the hardback copy to do, but that all that is a question of putting the new ISBN or ISBN, which is the identification number of the book, which differs from the paperback, and of course the Kindle has an ASIN number, and that's assigned when it goes to Amazon and to Kindle, processed there, and Don oversees that for me as well, and so you know, this is I as tedious as this process can be, I do enjoy it because it's bringing my story from my head and my words to life for readers to enjoy, and hopefully be entertained, and help them maybe even to remember things in their own lives that maybe they've done or places they've been. I have never been to Kentucky. I would love to go there. I have never been there, but I've always found any time that I've ever read anything about Kentucky or ever seen anything that was done about Kentucky, I found it very entertaining. Of course, now my story is set in a fictional place called the Meadows outside of Lexington, and now whether there's an actual area that is like the Meadows, that is very exclusive and very posh, and I don't know, because I mean there's different areas of Kentucky where it's more depressed than the area of where thoroughbred horse stables are found, of course, but you know, the coal mines and the areas that surround that, and that where there is not wealth, and there's not what's the word I want, exclusivity, or that like it is in the fictional The Meadows, and where Landon Lawn Stables is located in Landon Manor. And but I think, as I've said before in some of my videos, that if I could live within any of my books that I've written so far, it would be The Perils of Autumn and Return to Autumn Part 1 and Part 2, which has now become the Autumn Trilogy. Didn't start out that way, but that's the way it has become. And I'm very pleased about that, because when I was writing The Perils of Autumn, that begins this story, when I got to the end, or nearing the end of that book, writing it, I was thinking to myself that I think I could take this further. There's more story here, and I think I could take this much further. And I had a couple of other characters bouncing around in my mind that I thought, I'd give them life and put them into the story, and take it much further than where The Perils of Autumn ended. And that's why there was no tie-ups in the end of the book. And had some reviewers wondering, like, what happened to Duff Taylor? Why wasn't there more about Duff Taylor? Because, he is the antagonist of the story. And but when I decided I was going to carry the story on, I didn't do any tie-ups, as I said, and that's why you don't find what happens to Duff Taylor. And so when I decided to do Return to Autumn, I decided to do that just as a follow-up book. I was going to do it in only one book, and in there would be what happens over the course of the two books. But the page count again was too large, and it would have turned it into another grand scale novel. And after Passions in Paris, Revelations of a Lost Diary, it is a grand scale, and because it was my insistence that I do the story in one book. And stubborn me, I should have listened, and I didn't. And live and learn. That's how you learn, by experience. And it's great to have the story in one book, but the weight, it's heavy to hold it, and a lot of people see, an 800-page book. Passions has 818 pages, and a lot of people are put off by that. They think, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to read that in 5 years or something. But you would be surprised how quick the story moves along and how fast you can actually read it. And but I learned from that, and I decided, no, I'm never going to do that again. So when Return to Autumn's page count was high, I decided I would divide it into two, and that's how Dawn and I arrived at Return to Autumn Part 1 and Return to Autumn Part 2. And so, and as the story is playing out, picks up 4 years after where The Perils of Autumn stops. And a lot has gone on, and Duff has managed to add to his growing list of secrets, and underhandedness and debauchery and deceit and colorful character, let's put it that way. And in some ways, as you go through the story, you're going to find that Duff actually has a heart, and he has a soul, and he does second guess some of his actions that he has done, and but still little too late type of thing here. And in other words, he should have thought about it before he did it, and but he didn't, and he gets caught, and now he pays the piper. And so so you have to read both Return to Autumn Part 1 and the upcoming Return to Autumn Part 2 to find out exactly what happens to Mr. Duff Taylor. And so I'm not going to say any more about that. But I did want to mention that I had mentioned at the end of Return to Autumn in the book that there was going to be a follow-up called Return to Autumn. And I had one reviewer, as I had just touched on this before I got sidetracked off onto some other things, which I'm known to do, that she wondered, like, what happens to Duff Taylor, as I say, because there is no tie-ups in the end of Return or to The Perils of Autumn. And but I thought to myself, like, if you read the book, why didn't you read that there is a follow-up coming to this book instead of giving it a lower rating because it doesn't say what happens to Duff Taylor, that she seemed to be consumed with for some reason, which I could understand because he is not the most desirable character. And but if she would have clued into what I said in the end of the book, and that's the reason I said it, so that people would know there is going to be a follow-up coming to this story. It was listed right there in the name of the book. And so I don't know why she gave me a low rating. I think she only gave me a 3-star. And which, thank you. I mean, it's better than 1 star or better than nothing. But that seemed to be her bugaboo, was the fact that, what happens to Duff Taylor? I thought there'd be more about Duff Taylor, and so I don't know whether she's ever bothered to come to my website or find out about any more of my work. I really don't know. But if she did, she would see that Return to Autumn Part 1 has been available since last November. And Return to Autumn Part 2 is coming the end of this month. So, it's got lots about Duff Taylor, and she will find out what happens to Duff Taylor in Return to Autumn Part 2. In the end, where all the tie-ups come in, and you'll find out about Duff long before you get to the end where the tie-ups are. But, and another thing apparently she had a problem with was Cyril Landon's dialect, the way he speaks. He's English, and he come from a very hard background, and had a motherless upbringing, and prior to World War II, and he had to struggle for everything. No money, no prospects, no future, really. He managed to get a job at a local stable, and that's how he learned the equestrian trade, and saved his money and came to America, and came first to New York City and worked there in a restaurant in the kitchen, and you read all about this in The Perils of Autumn. And then he finds in the want ads in a New York paper an advertisement for a groom at what begins as Oliver Green Stables, and Cyril goes there, and of course, he gets the job, and that's the basis of where he comes to the Meadows. And but because of, she had a problem. This is the 70s, that the story primarily begins in the early 70s, or at the very beginning, when you're learning about autumn. Of course, it is in the late 40s, mid to late 40s, and it goes through to the main part of the story, which begins in 1970, when Autumn comes to Landon Manor to she has become a nurse, and she worked briefly in 2 Lexington hospitals, and the hospital sends her on assignment to Landon Lawn Stables and Landon Manor to care for the terminally ill wife of Cyril Landon. And that's how Autumn comes to be there. And Autumn is a real 70s girl. She's just immersed in the 70s fashion and everything about the 70s. And over the course of time, Cyril becomes involved, and as you say, I mean, they get married, of course, after Alice has passed away, and Cyril and Autumn are very taken with each other, and so needless to say, I mean, they get married and she stays there, and the story, that's how the story evolves and goes on. But this reviewer had a problem with the way Cyril speaks, and she couldn't, and the way Autumn speaks. Like she said, her father was in his 20s or something in the 70s, and she didn't. She asked him about some of the ways, some of the phrases that you read, like something is righteous, or something's just like totally awesome. This type of wording, and I know because I was in my 20s during the 70s. That decade was my decade, my 20th, like my year when I turned 20, and in 1970, and as the 70s progressed, I was one of the top 70s kids, I think, in my area, and so I know the slang, and I know the fashion, and all the different things that happened in the 70s, and so I put that into the story, and so I don't know where she was from, where her father was from, or anything else. Maybe it was different in their area. I don't know. But what you read in the book is the way it was for me. And Cyril, as I say, comes from a very desolate, hard background in England. And he has to do a lot of things that probably he wouldn't do if life circumstances had been better for him. And so the way that he speaks, he will say things like, "'Tis the way I want it," or "'Twas that way," and I know a lot of different English people, and that is the way they speak. And so I borrowed from it and incorporated that into Cyril's dialect, into the way that he speaks. And I had another reviewer kind of take me to task on that, because he was saying that is not the way an English gentleman would speak, and he knew of different people. He was apparently English as well, and I don't, that's fine. I don't take issue with anybody speaking to me in a derogatory way, or maybe in critiquing my work, because that's how you learn. And but he's supposed to have known lords, and I don't know all he said in his review, and that is not the way they speak. Well, fine. Cyril Landon is not an English lord, and Cyril Landon come from a very difficult, hard background, and so that's exactly the way it would have been, and the way that everybody would have spoken. It wouldn't have been correct etiquette and proper etiquette, and so and this is a fictional character, and it's not only the fact it's fictional, it's my characters the way I perceive them and the life that I gave them. And Cyril Landon is my very favorite character that I have ever created, that's ever come out of my mind. And I'm proud of Cyril Landon. And as I've said before, I'm in love with Cyril Landon. So why would I not defend Cyril Landon? Um, I just think that he's got a lot of depth. Um, he has survived very difficult things, and and has come out on top. And so I think it's great if this person actually existed and had that type of a beginning to end up the way he does. I think would just be fantabulous. And um, and so uh, so that is what's going on with Return to Autumn Part 2. It's coming along. I'm getting there, and it will be out by late April, which let me see, we haven't reached the halfway mark in the month yet, so we still have time. And I want to kind of tie it in a little bit with the running of this year's Kentucky Derby, which happens on May the 6th. And um, and so I hope you all stay tuned and anticipate this final installment in the autumn, what has become the autumn trilogy. And so I'm past the 30-minute mark here, so I'm going to say bye-bye for now. I wish you all a great afternoon, a great morning if you're still in morning, and if you're in the evening hours, I hope you have a very restful, peaceful evening as well. And so I want to wish God's blessings to each of you, and I will be back soon with another update of what's going on with Return to Autumn Part 2. And so please stay with me, stay tuned, like this video, share it on, please comment it, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take care, everybody, and I'll talk to you again soon. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.